Hey, it's Lucky. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to switch from Unity to Godot. We're going to set up the same project in Unity as Godot, and we're going to compare the differences, the similarities, and how to get familiar with the ecosystem of Godot when coming from Unity. So let's first create a project in both programs. I'll start up Unity Hub, and I'll click New Project, and I'm going to create a 3D project. And I'm just going to call it U2 Godot. Let's create projects. And in the time that this is creating, we're going to download and install Godot. So open up your browser, search for Godot, click the first link, click download latest, click Godot engine, and here it is downloading. You can see Unity is still starting up, and it's done. Open up the drawer, drag and drop the two exes anywhere you want, and double click Godot. That's it, you downloaded and installed Godot. It's that easy. So in your Godot editor, this will be empty because you don't have any projects yet, and we're just gonna create a new project. And in here in project path, I'm just gonna click browse, going to my projects folder, creating a new project, call it U2 Godot, a new folder I'm sorry. Clicking OK and select current folder. And here you can see we don't specify 3D or 2D when creating a project in Godot. We're just selecting our renderer, which you can switch at any time within the project as well. The Forward Plus renderer is the newest one, which we're going to use, or if you want to create a mobile game, you can use OpenGL. Forward Plus uses Vulkan. So just click create and edit, have it boot up, and that's it. Downloaded, installed, and creating a project in Godot. It's really fast. Actually, that's the first thing I would like to point out about Godot. The editor is very well optimized and it runs on almost anything. Here is it running on my Steam Deck. Here is it running on my mobile phone. Yes, Godot actually has an APK installer for the editor. I don't know why. But yeah, I think it's just a bit of a flex, but yeah. Alright, this is Godot. Let's switch back to Unity. And let's start off by comparing the UI. They're actually extremely similar, and you will be able to figure almost anything out yourself very easily. With the 3D view in the center of Unity, same as in Godot, 3D view in the center. Moving the camera around is exactly the same. Right-clicking WASD moves in Godot, same as in Unity. Right-clicking WASD. You have the little ball on the top right where you can go into side views and switch perspective or isometric view. Same in Godot. You have the little ball on the top. Go to the side views, or by clicking on the side you can switch to perspective or isometric. In Unity, you have your project browser or your file browser here in the bottom, and on the other tab you have your console. In Godot, you have your file browser here on the left, and the console is right here in output or debugger. Then in Unity, you have your scene view on the left, and if we select something, the inspector on the right. Same in Godot, scene view will be here, inspector will be here. But first we're going to declare what kind of scene we're building. And we're going to create exactly the same scene as the default scene in Unity. So we're going to go into the Godot and click 3D scene. Now you can see there's nothing by default in a Godot scene. So let's add that camera and that sunlight that is in the Unity default project. In Unity, when adding game objects, you go to this game object tab and then select the object that you want. It's very similar in Godot, except we use this little plus button, or Ctrl A as I like to do it, and then you get this window. This can be very intimidating at first, because this is everything that's in Godot. Every different node, every different physics object, cameras, everything you want is in this giant list. Which may look weird at the beginning, but when you get used to the search bar, it's a lot faster. So let's add a camera by just searching for camera. There you go, camera 3D. Let's move it off to the side a little bit by grabbing this arrow, just as in Unity. Same arrows. And then let's add this sun to the scene. You can see right here, sun in Unity. Let's click the plus again and let's search for directional light. It's called exactly the same. And we'll also rotate it down a bit by grabbing these circles, exactly the same as in Unity. These rotation circles, also right here. And that's it, the same scene setup in Godot as in Unity. And you can see, just like I said, inspectors here on the right. It's super similar. Transform, position, rotation, scale. Right here as well, position, rotation, scale. If you click on the camera, you get all your camera settings. Right here, if you click on the camera, get all your camera settings. So you can change the field of view. Same as in here, change the field of view. Very, very similar. So let's talk about the first difference, and that is the file browser. In Unity it's called project, and it's the project browser. And if we actually open this up in the file explorer, you'll see this is the Unity project. You have all these folders that you don't actually see within Unity. There's libraries, logs, packages, user settings, project settings, all these different things. If we actually go into the folder of the Godot project, you can see the only thing that there is this .godot folder and your Git files, and the rest is just exactly what's in the file browser. So this is almost a one-to-one in your file system as it is in the editor. So in Unity, the sample scene is automatically saved in this folder called assets, scenes, and then your sample scene. In Godot, it's not by default saved. So we're gonna hit Ctrl S to save this scene. And then we'll call it sample scene. And we'll also create a folder called scenes. And click save. And now we have the same structure. The scene is in the folder scenes. You get it. So how do you run a project in Godot? It's very similar. You just press the play button. And it's going to ask you to set a starting scene because it doesn't know by default. And we'll just say select current. So we run this scene. And there we go. And then let's do the same in Unity by just pressing the play button. Takes a little longer, but there we go. And you can see in Unity we can actually see the skybox. So why do we not see the skybox in Godot? We do see it in the editor, but it's not in the game. How's that possible? Well, that's because Godot uses world environments. You can kind of see it as your skybox and your post-processing layers from Unity combined into one object. And it's right here, it's this little world icon. We'll actually click on the three dots next to the world icon and add environment to scene. This will add a new node. In Unity we call them game objects, in Godot we call them nodes, to your scene. And in here you'll see environments in the inspector on the right. When we click the environment, you can see your sky, your post-processing effects, ambient occlusion, real-time lighting, tone mapping, ambient light, reflected light, and your skybox. And now that it's inside of this scene and no longer just in the editor, when we rerun the project, you'll see the skybox is there. So one difference between Unity and Godot is in Unity you can switch back to your scene while running your game. And right now you have a live view of your game in your scene inspector. In Godot this is different. Right now we're running the game in the background right here, but this is not a live view of the game as in Unity. You can, however, view a live version of the game in the hierarchy right here on the left by clicking remote. And now you have your live scene on the left, but it will never update in the 3D view. So you can inspect elements and their variables and what's going on, but you cannot see it live in 3D. Alright, so let's stop running in Godot and stop running in Unity. And let's actually add something to the world. Let's add a cube in Unity. This is of course in game objects, 3D objects, cube. And there we go, a beautiful cube at a really location in the world. I don't know why Unity does this, but let's just change it to 0, 0, 0. And let's do the same in Godot. So just like before, we're gonna click the little plus button. And when you search for cube, there's nothing there. So does Godot not have cubes? Yes, it does. Only it bunches all the different default meshes together in this one node, the mesh instance 3D. So let's create a mesh instance 3D. And right now it will be empty because there is no mesh. And it's actually very similar to Unity, because if you go to the cube, you can see it's just in game object with a mesh attached to it, and the mesh is a cube right here. In Godot it's the same, it's just a node, so not a game object, it's a node with a mesh instance attached to it, and the mesh is still empty now, but you can just click it and select the cube, or anything you want. There you go, there's your cube. So that's how you add game objects or nodes to a scene in Godot. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about assets. So let's first go into Unity and create a material. So I'll just create a folder, materials, and in here I'll right click, create this giant list, a new material. Where is that? Material, and I'll call this green. And let's actually set it to a green color in the color picker. And as you do in Unity, drag and drop it onto the cube. Now let's do the same thing in Godot. And you'll notice again, it's extremely similar. Right click in the file system, new folder, materials, right click, create new, and you'll see there's no giant drop down. And that's because all those drop down options from Unity are in this resource tab. And when you click it, you get this search box again. So these are all the resources, just as in here. All these options are right here in this search box. So we'll search the material. And then you get all these different kind of materials, and we just want a standard material 3D. Let's click create, and we'll call it green. And you can see it's super similar. It's got this little ball as an icon, the name, and on the right you have all the same options, even a little bit more options. But for now we're just going to go into albedo and also change that color. Now this is a little confusing in Godot. Default color picker, I really dislike it. Some people like this a lot more, but I dislike this one. I actually prefer the Unity color picker, but don't worry, it's right here. Just click this little ball and slider on the right, and you can go to HSF wheel, and as you can see, it's the exact same thing. So let's select that green again. So how do we apply a material to a cube in Godot? Couldn't be as simple as just dragging and dropping it, the same as Unity, right? Yes, it is. Drag and drop it on there, exactly the same. And it works. So the next thing I'd like to touch on really quickly is scripts and organization in the scenes. So in Unity, most scenes are organized by creating empties and giving them names, and then dragging some things into there to like structure your scene. Surprise, it's exactly the same in Godot, only we don't call them empties, we just call them nodes. So if you just add a node 3D, by default it's empty, and you can drag stuff onto there and it works exactly the same. This node is now the parent of both these objects. You can drag them around. Exactly the same as in Unity. Now let's quickly touch on scripting. So in Unity, when you wanted to add a script to an object, you click the object and click add component and click new script and then name your script. I'll call it spin. And now let's add a script to an object in Godot. I'll click our cube again, and you'll see there is a plus metadata, but this is not what you want. It looks similar, but this is not the right button. It's right here on the left. Add script. So a little script icon with a plus, and whatever you have selected, it will add a script to this. And here the same, it's going to ask us to name this script, and we'll call it spin as well. Or you can press the little folder icon to browse where you want to put it. I'll put it in the root of my folder, call it spin, and click open, create. Now, instantly the code editor pops up. Godot has a built-in code editor, so no external programs are messing around with a Visual Studio or anything. It's all built in. let's go to Unity and open up that script. It's going to open your selected code editor, -VS Code. And you can see the scripts are also extremely similar. Only in Unity you have these imports and this class, and then you have your start, which runs at the beginning, and your update, which runs every frame. In Godot you can see at the top it extends this mesh instance, and then you have your ready function, which is the same, runs once at start, and your process function, which runs every frame. Now GDScript is something new to learn. It's not the same as C#. C# you can see it's got these brackets and it's structured in classes. It's a lot more similar to Java, while GDScript is a lot similar to Python. And I find it's actually quite similar to JavaScript in the way that it doesn't declare variable types. So going into Unity, when we want to set up a variable, we're going to declare it like this. Public float spin speed. And this is a nice feature of Unity, which I thought I was going to miss in Godot. It's when you make up a variable public and you actually go into the inspector. Click on that cube, you get your variable right there. You can edit it within the editor. I thought this was a premium Unity feature. It's not, it's also a Godot feature. Let me show you how. Instead of public, we type @export. And then again, we don't declare variable types. So we're just saying var, not float or int or game object. Just var, could be anything. And we'll say spin speed. And we actually do have to give it a default value. So we'll say 0.1. And then when we go back into the 3D view at the top here, you have the tabs. And we click on that mesh, you can see the variable pops up in the inspector, just like in Unity. So now this is not a scripting tutorial. I'm not going to teach you the complete basics of GDScript. There's a lot of great tutorials out there. I'll link a couple below. I'll actually link a lot of tutorials below to get you started. But we're just going to create a basic spinning script. And in Godot, there's actually a built-in function for rotating an object. And you can actually see this auto-completion in Godot. It's very useful. It's really well implemented. So we're just going to create use rotate Y. And Godot, just like Unity, works in radians, so not degrees. And we do want to use degrees for the spin speed, otherwise it's going to be very fast. So we'll just use a translation function, degrees to radiant. This function basically translates any degrees into a radiant value. And we'll use that spin speed. And then you can remove this pass variable. This basically means end of a function, but if there's something in a function, it doesn't need an end of a function. You can see it's documented here, replace with function. So let's run the Godot project. And you can see our cube is spinning. Quite slowly. Let's turn it up to 1. And run it again. That's nice. Let's go into Unity and do the same. It's been a little while, so give me a second. I believe it's transform.rotate, declaring your axis, which is Y, spin speed, and then declaring your world space, space.world, I believe. Oh, yeah. In Godot, you don't actually need to close lines with like the little icon. In Unity, of course, you do. In C# actually. Let's run this. And our spin speed is still set to 0. And there you go. Rotating cube in Unity and in Godot. Next up, I'd like to talk about a couple features that were in Unity that I thought I was going to miss in Godot, which is not true. So Unity has this awesome built-in feature where you can drag and drop Blender files straight into your project without needing to export the model to another format and then import it into Unity, blah, 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 blah. I thought there's no way Godot has this, but it does. And let me show you. So I'll open up Blender. I'll delete everything and just add a monkey. And then I'll save this to my desktop and call it monkey. Click save. And then we can close out of Blender. And as you will remember with Unity, when you import a Blender file, it just works straight off the box. You can just edit that Blender file and it changes directly in the game engine. Really nice premium feature. I thought there was no way. Free game engine, no way. Yes, there is. Editor, editor settings, and in here you'll have the import tab. And you'll just need to select your Blender path right here. So where you have Blender installed, just set up that path. And now it works exactly the same. Monkey goes into Godot. And just like in Unity. There it is. And if I open this in my file browser and then change this monkey, save it, go back into Godot, it detects it automatically, re-imports the model, and you can see it's changed. And you notice this pattern a lot. When starting with Godot, you have a lot of things where you'll be like, oh, I don't think this is possible in Godot, or I don't think this is yet implemented in Godot. It is, it probably is. Just Google around a little bit, there's a lot of support online. You'll find a bunch of stuff. One other example I wanted to give is the terrain tool in Unity. It's also a very nice feature from Unity that I thought I was gonna miss. So in Unity you can just add a terrain to any scene. You get this giant terrain, which you can edit like that and have instant terrains in your game. Very nice feature. So where is it in Godot? It's not in there by default, but this is where add-ons come in. So there is this 3D terrain add-on for Godot. It's super polished, and you'll see this a lot when there's something missing from Godot. There's somebody building it. So I have some add-ons saved on my computer, but of course I'll leave a link to where you can download them. Here I have this terrain 3D add-on, and importing add-ons in Godot is as easy as just dragging and dropping them. And now we have this terrain add-on, and in projects, project settings, you can see in plugins all your add-ons. There's a lot of great add-ons for Godot. I'll leave a link to a website that has a lot of them. Just enable this, close it out, and now again when pressing plus and searching for terrain, and then clicking on new terrain, we have the same functionality as Unity. Giant terrain, same tools, collisions, everything. So the last thing I wanted to talk about is some of the differences to watch out for when getting started in Godot. The number one being the inputs. So while in Unity you call an input function and just check for keys or gamepad inputs, in Unity it's much of the same. You have this input class and you can get whether a button is pressed or an action is pressed, but you don't actually call the buttons. In Godot, we have this input map. So when you go into project settings, input map, you first have to set up all your inputs. So for example, you can add a forward input and then click this plus icon and you can say what is the input. So W, but you can have multiple. So up key and W will both be the forward input, and this is very nice for building for controllers and keyboards at the same time, because you can just use the same exact code for both. It's really nice actually. And then within the code you don't call input get key W, but you just check if the forward input is just pressed, so not the actual W key, but you're instead referencing this input map. All your project settings are in here, in project settings, and then general. There's a lot of stuff here. A couple of the most important ones are this window, where you can set up the window and how your game runs in full screen, etc. There's also a lot of graphic options like anti-aliasing, the renderer, some of the default colors, some physics options like gravity. This is very similar as Unity, won't be very surprised by this. Another useful thing to know in Godot is auto-load scripts. Auto-load scripts are like these global scripts. You have the same things in Unity, but they're these scripts that run on startup, and they're just above every scene. So when you switch scenes, these scripts will keep running. They're like your data managers and your player managers, and they can be added here. So let me quickly show you how to do that. In my assets folder, I'll create a new script call it global, and then in project setting auto load, I'll grab this global script by clicking this little folder icon and then click add. And now this global script is auto loaded into every scene and it's run above every scene. So even when the scene switches, this one is still active. And so everything can access this global script. So if I say here var message equals hello world, this spin script or any other game object can access that global script. So I'll just say print and grab that global dot message. So you can see this script is not connected to this global script, but just because it's an auto load, it can automatically find it when we run it. You'll see that little hello world message. So this is just a basic translation guide coming from Unity to Godot. Of course, there's a lot to learn. Learning GTscript is going to be a bit of a fight, but I'm sure you can do it. I've got a lot of great tutorials on this channel. I have a full course for a first-person controller, which is nice and polished, a third-person controller, a top-down RPG controller. I have a tutorial for doing animations in Godot. Godot actually has a built-in animation editor, and it's very useful. You don't even have to animate in Blender or some other software. You can animate straight into Godot. It's amazing. Also leave a link to that below. I'll leave some links to VR tutorials and a couple of links to some projects I did for Android and some of my general projects just within Godot. And yeah, welcome to Godot. I hope you learn a lot here and on the other channels. And until the next one, bye.